Hello, everybody, and welcome to day 154 of the Road to 2K on chess.com. Today, we are currently sitting at 1958, but today is once again going to be a recap video because I did play a tournament earlier today on 12-13-25. It was a 4-round tournament today, and it was the time control was 25 plus 5 delay, USCF rated. So we're going to, jump right on in. Now, as we're going along, definitely let me know what I could have done differently in these games because I still, this is kind of my live analysis of these games. So in this first game, I was playing Ms. Angela, who we actually played last week in that recap video. I went into this tournament at 1509, and Angela was rated at 1410. So, as normal, I led with e4. After e5, knight c3, knight f6. We have a Vienna game, and I always like to go for the Vienna gambit with f4. So I played Angela before. I know that she knows the main line, but this is one of the first times I've actually had prep on my side. So after f captures e5, knight captures and queen to f3. My opponent played f5, and this is a line I've actually been working on with Chess League, Gotham Chess's chess website. So I played the move d3 here. Now, after knight captures c3, b captures c3, and bishop to e6, I sat here. I had to take a quick pause to remember my move, and then it was knight to e2 with the idea of coming knight to f4 and then finishing our development and castling. So after knight c6, I play knight f4 first, tempoing the bishop. I'm really just asking the question of, does our opponent want to leave this piece hanging? So after the move queen to d7, d4 solidifies the pawns, and then we have this nice little pawn structure going towards the king side. Saw bishop to e7, bishop to d3, putting more pressure on the f5 pawn. And after the move castles, this is where I had to take my first kind of pause of the game and decide what I wanted to do. I didn't want to be too aggressive because my king is still in the center of the board. So I played the move castles myself. And after my opponent went rook a to d8, you can already see the evaluation drops off the edge. And here I calculated the sequence. Knight captures e6, queen captures e6, and bishop captures f5, winning a pawn, and tempoing the queen. Now, initially, I thought the queen was trapped. I had missed, however, that the queen can actually run to f7. And in this position, this was like my first big pause of the game because I was trying to figure out what to do. And unfortunately, I played a little bit fast. One thing I think I really should have done here is actually move bishop captures h7 check. It forces the king away, and then you can have queen captures, and rook captures. Here, probably king to g8, rook to f3, develop our bishop, get our second rook in, and we're simply up in exchange with a pawn. And this game should be pretty easily winning at this point. Or sorry, up 2 pawns plus the exchange. However, what I did here is I actually played the third best move in the position with the move queen to g4, simply making the idea that I want to play bishop to h6, and I want to essentially try and use my queen to batter through the position. Now here, king h8, beautiful move, just stepping out of the pin. I played bishop to g5, which unfortunately was the wrong way to go. Apparently here, bishop to e3, just developing and connecting my rooks was the best way to go about the position. But yeah, after bishop to g5, my idea was I wanted to trade this off because I thought that this passed pawn, the e5 pawn, is going to be truly the strongest point in the position for myself. So after bishop captures g5, queen captures g5, and queen to e8, I was trying to figure out how I can make progress in this position. What I probably should have done is I should have played rook a to b1, going after this pawn here on b7. Instead, I came up with the move rook a to e1, getting behind my passed pawn and preparing to push it. Now, this did allow for tempo with knight to e7, so I played bishop to d3, just getting my bishop out of the way, potentially looking at creating some checkmating threats on the h7 square. And after the move queen to d7, queen to h4, once again, threatening this check, my opponent made the big mistake of playing knight to f5. Now, on the surface, this doesn't look like a huge mistake. But this is actually one of the reasons why I wanted to keep my queen on this diagonal here, is I do have eyes on that rook, which is going to become very, very important. So in this position, what I have is the move bishop captures f5. I really like this move as opposed to rook captures f5 for the reason being that bishop captures f5 threatens the queen and threatens mate in 1. They could play the move g6, at which point you just play bishop captures g6. Or bishop captures d7, I'm sorry, is definitely the more correct move here. Apparently g5 was a way to play, and the engine just wants us to take this queen off. Allow G captures H4, rook captures F8 check, rook over, and probably rook to F1, taking the open file. But yeah, after knight F5, bishop takes, rook captures F5 is all but forced because mate is threatened. We have rook captures F5, and now I'm just up a piece. Because if our opponent were to take on F5, it's simply mate in 2 after queen captures D8, queen F8, and queen captures F8 checkmate. So in this game, after I took here, C6 just made the pawn chain, so I very quickly played the move rook E to F1. Apparently here I just had to move E6 to start pushing this past pawn. I think I missed here that after queen E7 is impossible because of queen captures E7. But I'm not mad at the way I converted this. I used my extra material, doubled on the file. After rook to G8, rook to F8. Threatening to trade off. Now, rook to F7, I believe, is slightly better. But rook F8, queen to E6. Rook captures G8. And here, you can't play king captures G8 because of queen D8 check. Queen here, and then queen captures. So instead, we have queen captures G8. And I thought this was one of my favorite moves of this game in particular, was the move queen to E7. And now, the really nice part is the queen is trapped. It has no squares to go. Let's just say, for example, it goes to A8. Rook F8 check is just a mate in 2. And the way this game ends is a pretty quick conversion. So I pinned the queen to the king. I took it off. The king started to run. And my opponent chose to play it out, which is definitely their right in these tournaments. So after E8 equals queen, queen G6, and queen F4, it is simply checkmate with really my pawns and my queens combining to create that threat. So it was the first time in a long time that I've started with a win in one of these tournaments, so I was actually quite pleased going into my second game. And in the second game, I had to play a young individual named John, who I've actually think I played his brother before in a few rated tournaments, and some of that may have been featured here on the channel. So in this game, I was playing the black pieces. My opponent played D4. I played D5 because I still don't quite know what my repertoire is against 1D4. After knight to C3, knight to F6, just defending the pawn, bishop F4, and we have a Jobava London position. So here what I did was I played C6, stopping the knight from coming in, and kind of going for like I can't recall if it's a Slav or a semi-Slav setup here. But after the move E3, bishop to G4, I already start running into some issues here because one of the big ideas with the Jobava London system is they're going to get my opponent really wants this big kingside pawn push. And I walk straight into it. So after F3, bishop H5, G4, bishop G6, H4. Mind you, we are 7 moves in and my opponent is just blitzing moves off like it's nobody's business. So I played H6 to create a small square for my bishop. After H5, bishop back, bishop to D3. And here is the idea is our opponent has now grabbed all this space on the king side. And I really don't have much of a choice but to trade off this bishop. So I went ahead, bishop captures D3, queen captures D3, and then move E6 to make a little bit of a triangle setup. Had knight G to E2, bishop to D6, threatening to trade off. A little bit better here was probably a move like queen to B6. But I was a little bit worried about my queen vacating the position because I didn't quite know what I wanted to go for next. But after bishop to D6, my opponent played E4, struck right back in the center, and here I was really starting to struggle to find a move. I initially considered bishop captures F4, and after knight captures F4, I probably would have chopped in the center with D captures E4, but now my opponent has a really, really strong central presence. It's going to be difficult for me to do anything here. However, I opted to go D captures E4 first, knight captures E4, bishop captures F4, knight captures, and then knight to A6, with the idea of bringing my knight back to C7, or creating some ideas like queen to B4. And essentially what I had seen here is if my opponent goes knight captures F6 check, queen captures F6, and let's just say, for sake of example, they go knight to G2, they probably wouldn't want to move back. My big idea here was actually the move knight to B4, tempoing the pawn. If my opponent moves, let's say, queen to C4, my idea was queen captures D4, queen captures D4, and knight captures C2 check. Picking the queen back up, the king can no longer castle. All on castle, my rooks will get nice and strong in the center. And this was really the biggest idea I had in the position. That didn't happen. He played really, really nicely. So after bishop captures f4, knight captures, and knight to a6, he hit me with long castles, immediately opening up some pressure here. And the big threat, in my opinion, is really going to be stopping the move d5. So I opted to try and trade off as much material as I can because I thought that I would fare okay in an endgame here. So after knight captures e4, queen captures e4, I played the move queen to g5 pretty quick, trying to get my opponent to respond to the fact that the knight is pinned to the queen. My idea was kind of a reroute idea through c7 to d5 to try and win this piece. My opponent simply plays king to b1, and I played long castles here, castling into the idea of the attack. However, I thought my pieces are somewhat well enough coordinated to defend. Now, after the move rook to d3, I played the move rook h to e8, trying to get all my pieces active. Rook to c3, and it became very clear here. The idea was a big sacrificial attack on this pawn. And I believe here, if I would have played a slow move, let's call it like f6, I think my opponent's idea was rook captures c6. However, I think it fails because after b takes queen captures c6, we do have knight to c7. The alternative is after king to b8, queen captures a6. I believe I have queen captures f4, and I'm simply up the rook because my opponent did have to sacrifice the piece. There may be a perpetual check somewhere here, but I think black should be winning. So instead, after rook to c3, I opted to play the move f5 right away, attacking the queen and attacking the pawn. Now after queen e3, I played f captures g4. And instead of taking back the pawn immediately, my opponent just plays rook to g1, pinning my pawn to the queen. And I was already down, I don't know, probably 7 or 8 minutes on the clock at this point. And I realized that if I didn't create something, I was probably going to lose this game because the attack was honestly just feeling very strong for white. So I came up with the move e5. And the idea behind e5 is I'm attacking the pinned knight to the queen. I'm attacking this pawn in the center of the board, and everything is defended by my rooks, which were developed to the center of the board, which is why it's super important in these positions to do so. And after d captures e5, I had rook captures e5, attacking the queen. And my opponent went for queen captures a7. Now, what I realized after I was sitting there at the board with rook captures e5 being played is I think my opponent actually had to move queen to c1, which stops all the ideas of the rooks infiltrating, as well as it continues to defend the knight. But queen captures a7 is a very tricky move as well, and I props to my opponent for finding it, because after queen captures f4, my opponent played the beautiful move rook captures c6 check, sacrificing a rook to pick a piece back up. After b captures c6, queen captures a6, king to d7, and you know, you look at this position, I'm up a rook for a pawn, and it should be clearly winning. However, I wasn't entirely sure that this was a winning position for me. What I thought was going to happen in the game was I thought we were going to have rook to d1 and then rook to d5. And at this point, we have to figure something out. I don't know, maybe queen to b7, queen to c7, and there's no more checks in this position. You know, rook check, c captures d5, and apparently queen to a6 is the best move. But up a rook, I should win this game every time. Instead, what happens after queen captures, after we got into this position, I ran king to d7, and my opponent hit me with queen to b7 check first. So there is no queen to c7. And I kind of froze here. I didn't know what to do. I thought about running up. I thought about running to the side. The biggest reason, and this is really the position where I probably made the decision, is I didn't want to run all the way to the king side because I thought at some point my opponent is going to have the move queen to g6 defended by the pawn, and that would simply be mate. So after king to e6, queen captures c6, rook to d6, queen to e8 check. This was my really big choice to still win the game. I had to play either the move king to f5 or king to f6 and go for this position. Because if my opponent continues with the checks, let's say they take this pawn, and I come up to h4. Rook captures g4. Apparently here, I have king to h3. And there's no more checks for my opponent. and they can't take the queen because there's mate in 1 2 different ways. I only had about 2 minutes left in this position to find this whole variation, because if I mean, like last week's game, if I just walk into checkmate, I'm going to be so sad and so disappointed in myself. So instead, after queen to e8 check, I played the move king to d5, which immediately loses all the advantage. You can see that evaluation bar just tank. And after rook to d1, I actually played the incorrect move of queen to d4, thinking I can give up the queen for the 2 rooks, and maybe this position is doing okay. What I missed is after the move c4 check, and my king is simply forced out. Like, there's nothing great for me to do. I can't go queen to c5 because there's checkmate. And if I go here, then the best move here is queen to a4 check, saving the queen first. King is forced away, and then we have really rook or queen takes, and the position's lost. However, after we got into this position, queen d4, my opponent played queen to b5 check, king to e6, and even after queen to e8, I had the same idea of going king to f5, king to g5, and running away. But alas, I went here, I offered a draw, my opponent accepted, and the game ended in a draw. So I moved to 1.5 out of 2 for the tournament going into this round, and we're going to jump right into round 3. Now, round 3, playing a gal I played a few times before, just not on the channel. Her name is Anushka. She is a very, very strong junior player. Now, after the move e4 and d5, we have a Scandinavian defense, so nothing too crazy here. E captures d5, queen captures, knight c3, queen a5, d4, knight f6, and this is pretty much a mainline Mises Cartridge Scandinavian. So after knight f6, I just played knight to f3, fully expecting a move like bishop to g4, bishop to f5. However, in this position, she played c5, and this one kind of froze me because I've never seen the move c5. I figured something had to be wrong with it. The best 2 ways I was supposed to go about this was either just straight up taking the pawn or pushing forward. Neither one of which I was super amped to do. So instead what I did was I just played the move bishop to b5 check, seeing that at some point some piece that probably doesn't want to land on d7 is going to be on d7. So after bishop d7, bishop captures, knight b captures d7. Play the move bishop to d2, preparing a discovered attack on the queen. Queen to d8 was played, and here I played the move queen to e2, which is actually one of the best moves in the position, which I was quite pleased to see. The idea here being that I am still flexible on which way I want to castle. My opponent potentially might have a queenside pawn storm. They may start coming this way, and I want to see what they're going to do. And with the e-pawn being here, there's no way a rook can jump onto the e-file and pin my queen. So after the move a6, I saw that potentially knight to b5 is coming with a queenside pawn storm, so castles becomes the most logical option. Engine's best move is technically long castles, but I don't know if I ever play this myself. But I set a little bit of a trap. I played the move knight to e4. This is there's similar lines in the Karpov variation of the Caro-Kann, where it's a very trappy system, with the idea being exactly what's going to happen in the game. And after my opponent played c captures d4, my jaw kind of dropped, and I played knight to d6, checkmate. Queen pins the pawn, the knight. It's essentially a smothered mate in the middle of the board. I don't want to harp on this game too much because it's a pretty quick little like opening trappy kind of variation. But for the first time in a long time, I pick up 2 wins. So I was really, really pleased here. Now, in the final game of the tournament, I was playing against a gentleman named Travis. Finally, I got to play an adult in one of these tournaments, so it was nice to not sit across from a kid for once, although the kids are always strong competitors. So Travis got to the game. I was probably about, I don't know, minute or two late to the tournament starting, or a minute too late to this round starting. But he had played d4, so I played d5, c4, and I played the move e5, the Albin counter gambit, after seeing the Queen's gambit. Honestly, when I got to this point, I was pretty tired, and I don't feel like I've really put my best foot forward in this game. And it's funny, because once I played e5, my opponent kind of let out a chuckle, and I let out a chuckle, and it kind of let some of that nervous energy off, and we realized we were going to have a pretty fun game here. So after d captures e5, d4 is the correct move. There's a really fun variation where if your opponent plays the move e3, you have bishop to b4 check, and after bishop d2, you also have d captures e3. With the idea being that after bishop captures b4, we actually take here, typically king to e2, and this is beautiful variation where you play f captures g1 knight check, which is going to help you to pick up the queen very shortly. Alas, my opponent didn't fall for that. So after d4, knight to f3, knight to c6, bishop f4, knight g to e7, knight b to d2, and knight to g6. This is pretty much a mainline Alban counter gambit. Now, I knew in my head that this was a slightly better position for white, but it's almost already equalized for black, even being down the pawn, because my opponent didn't play the moves h3, e3, or I believe it's a3 in any of those positions. Oh, sorry. I think it's g3, e3, or a3. But once we got to here, after bishop to g3, I played the move bishop to e6, and unfortunately, I think this was a little bit slow. I really thought here for a while about playing the move h5 and trying to induce an early h4. However, I didn't really understand how I want to proceed from this position. I probably had to play a move like bishop to g4, trying to trade off this knight and then eventually win this pawn on e5. So in the future, I'm hoping to remember these ideas from doing these recaps. So after the move a3, which effectively prepares b5, I played the move a5 to stop that push. However, that did allow time to play a move like queen to c2, bishop to e7, h4, h5, and knight to e4, where the knight jumps straight into the center of the board. At this point, I realized that I was in trouble. My opponent's pieces are all coming alive. There's really no good way for me to win this e-pawn, and the position has very quickly gone from somewhat equal to white having a lot of initiative here. So I came up with the move bishop to f5, pinning the knight to the queen. Understand that there was a check and that I could at least win the piece, or have a trade of pieces. So after knight to f6 check, I play the move bishop captures f6, queen captures f5, and bishop to e7, because I do have to get out of the way. And I kid you guys not, I think I took 15 minutes in this position just trying to figure, or sorry, in this position. In this position, trying to figure out what to do. I thought about moves like knight g to e7. However, after the move queen to e4, I just had no ideas anymore without giving up material. So my idea was bishop e7, e6, bishop to f6, which I blitzed out pretty quick. However, I think what I missed here is the move e captures f7. Now, what I have to do here is I have to play king to f8. Whether it be tilt, whether it be fatigue, there's really no good excuses here. My opponent punished me because I played the move king captures f7. And after knight to g5, I spent maybe another, 4 to 5 minutes trying to figure out if I have anything here. The issue is most lines lead to checkmate. Is after the move like king to e8, there's simply queen captures g6 check, king to d7, and everything in my position is going to get hunted pretty quick. Queen to f5 check, king's essentially forced back, and then they could honestly probably even push and bring their pieces in. If I come to g8, we have queen to e6 check, king is f8 is forced, and then queen f7 checkmate. If I go straight back, it's some of the same issues here. Is I actually have knight to e6, then I lose my queen with check, probably rook captures, and I'm just not coming back from being down a queen for the piece. So really not seeing any options for me here after thinking about it for a bit. I actually accidentally made the move bishop captures g5, completely forgetting that my king was pinned, and my opponent's like, hey, the piece is pinned. Now, normally in USCF, you would get your time back. Him and I looked at each other and kind of chuckled, and he goes, I don't need the time. I was like, hey, cool by me. And after a few more seconds of thought, I was like, yeah, I resign. It's cool. So ultimately today, I ended up with 2.5 out of 4 points, which is my best result in quite a bit. That gave me a good enough score to get third place in the tournament. So I have a little trophy that I'll show at some point over on my shelf over there. I'm up now to 1526 over the board with USCF. So I probably won't be reaching my goal of 1700 by the end of this year. But I do feel like my chess play is starting to improve, similar to like it has on the series. So as always, I appreciate you guys for all the support and for watching my videos. I hope to continue to make all this content for you guys. And on that note, I will see you guys on the next episode of The Road to 2K.